Oh my goodness. Hi, everyone. Hi. It is so good to be back. I mean, I never left, but yeah, it feels really, really good. And it makes me feel really proud of, oh my goodness, starting on the floor of my apartment. I'm just, holy shit. Starting in like 2019 in my apartment, living alone on the floor. I'm very much a floor person with my iPhone headphones, back when they were used to be wired and now they're wired again. That is so silly. But yeah, it just makes me proud of all of the early days of pressing record and seeing what happens. And it's so wild to think, well, first, I have so many updates, but I'm just excited to be here and I'm so glad that you're here. And I feel like I have so many new listeners. Thank you so much to Threads. Wow, I didn't even want to join Threads. But I feel like I've connected with so many of you and found my podcast, and I'm just so grateful because many of my audience and my support are also artists, and they're also, business owners and creative career people. So I know that when you first start, you're like, what the fuck? What? So yeah, this is just me feeling so grateful for starting this freaking almost 7 years ago. That's so wild. In November, it will be 7 years since I started my podcast. That is so wild. And I'm almost to 100 episodes. I think this episode will put me up really close, which is exciting. But yeah, I also have just realized as just having this belief that I needed to be on all of these different platforms, creating reels and videos and TikToks and all of these things. And then it's when you really get down to it, my heart and soul and literal bread and butter is long form content. There's no getting around that. And that's not to say that short form content is, bad or anything like that. It's just that there is this depth to what I have to share. And, I would rather spend time creating than trying to figure out how to put my, put my depth in 100 characters. And so, I started this podcast first from a blog. The whole Embrace the Madness started out as Madly in Love in 2016. And I was like, social media is draining me. And I feel like I would love to see some more positive, supportive, encouraging things. And so I was like, let me just post. I had written blogs. Of course, someone starts doing yard work when oh geez, from when I first started in my apartment. Also, you realize how freaking neurodivergent I am. I'm bouncing everywhere, but it's just an inside joke. Every time I would record a podcast in my apartment, in 2019, 2020, they would start doing yard work. So it feels like whatever, but it just got a little bit quieter. So yes, Embrace the Madness actually started as Madly in Love, which actually started as a blog that I was writing to my grandma because I was studying abroad. And at the time I was living with her. And so my grandpa had passed. So I just wanted to keep in touch with her. And I was like, well, she gets on the computer and I don't even know who she would fucking email, but I was like, I can share this and you can read it. And when I post one, you can read it and it'll be a story and you can live vicariously through me. And so that is really how my blog started. And I was an academic writer and wrote a thesis for my undergraduate even went to present it at the Society for Neuroscience conference, which baller. But anyways, damn. And so I really was like an academic writer, but then when I had come back from France, I still wanted to write. I had graduated, so I didn't need to write anymore. And I really wanted to write about what felt meaningful to me. I was just going through a breakup with like my first long-term boyfriend, and like I was just deep in my feels. I had just, recovered from this, trigger warning, very dangerous car accident. Yeah, that was like 3 months before I graduated. And if you listen to my Alchemizing My Story, I actually shared a lot about it. It's in the last 3 episodes. Yeah, I was just going through so much, and I think that being in academia, I was just always in my brain, and as a Gemini moon, that just feels a little normal to me. And I'm still always in my brain, but I think there was no real outlet for me to share what was on my heart and what I really wanted to write about, And that was like life and existence and feelings and being a human and wondering what the fuck is going on, like, in this world around us. And so that was how Madly in Love started. And yes, in tandem, it was like I was posting on Instagram. I would just go and make these little things, little artsy, little creative, and I would use quotes from my blogs. So it was like a cool way to repurpose my content before I even called it that, back when you're creating just for the freedom of expression. And I really enjoyed that, and it felt really meaningful for me to put a little bit of positive energy out into the world. And lo and behold, long form writing turned into podcasting. That was kind of when podcasting was getting really big. And I was like, well, I've heard that my voice is really soothing, so let's try it. And it was so fucking incredible, like in ways that I didn't even realize it would be, because just having a space where you can, like a literal physical space where you can just say whatever the fuck you want, and as a verbal processor, that is like key for me. And it also felt really therapeutic, because a lot of times we have these thoughts and feelings that are just like stuck in our brain or mind, or they're stuck in our body and we never really let them out. And so just having that, especially during the pandemic, it made me feel less alone and made me like just get shit out that I had been holding on to. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I just had a lot of things that was like in my brain that I wanted to talk about that I never really did, so I did. And that was back, in 2019. Wild that I even called it Embrace the Madness before we knew what 2020 would become. But that might be a little psychic of me, in which case, right on brand. But yeah, just me sitting in the living room today, wanting to record and reminiscing of the beginning, because now I am a full-time artist, creative. I have built my creative career. I'm also a spiritual coach. And so it's like, if I could go into my apartment in 2019 and like remind myself that what you have to share is so valuable and so important and is going to be supportive for so many others, I would just tell her that and cheer her on and support her, because she would not know what was coming. It's just so incredible and special. I am so grateful. I've been wanting to kind of come back into regularly sharing on here again, because that's the thing too, like, we go through seasons and cycles of life, and for a brief stint, I was like, ooh, I want a video podcast. And like my boyfriend, my sweet Avy Davy, he was like, here's a camera, I'll get you a camera and everything you need. The microphone I'm using, he got. And Davis is my partner of almost 7 years. And he's just such a sweetie. He's been supporting me literally since day one of meeting me. There was a stint where I was like, ooh, I really want to do video podcasts. And then I'm like, ooh, I'm really neurodivergent and I don't want to be seen sometimes. And I still tried to do it. I actually did almost like a whole year of collective monthly readings, which if you just need a chill, relaxing vibe, go check it out on my YouTube channel. And yeah, I've also toyed around with bringing back video too. And that's the thing. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what I want and what feels good for me, because that's how I run my business. And that's how I've gotten to this place where I am full time as a creative. And I'm so grateful. What I will say is that video can be effort. I love editing videos, so that is not a problem. It does become part of the process, but I don't have a problem with that. It's really honestly just like navigating the fear of being seen at any given moment, and you're like, but if I don't want to be on camera, I'm not going to force myself. And that's just what works for me. And unlearning force has been like chef's kiss in my life and in my business and my relationship and my career, everything really. I've just kind of learned to create more spaciousness and let go and surrender more. Yeah, I just wanted to, come back on the pod to talk a little bit about that and talk about we feel like we have to run ourselves into the ground to be successful, because that is so much of what we have been modeled for a lot of our lives. And we just simply don't have to. We don't have to. We don't have to do that. And I, as a sensitive, neurodivergent, cyclical woman, do not want to. And I think the reality of our world is that not everybody can just make that decision like that. It takes some chess moves. It takes some moving of the pieces, like it takes intention. But I do know that the systems that benefit off of us believing that we have to be exhausted all the time, those systems are crumbling. And we can see it all around us in just whatever the heck's going on in the government, whatever the heck is going on with all of that stuff. We can see these systems are crumbling. And Embrace the Madness is about how can we show up in this fucked up world as these beings filled with love and filled with hope and creativity, and how can we take this madness and turn it into something else that supports us and supports our livelihood and well-being. And when I say all of us, I mean everyone, like every single person, no matter what your race is, no matter what your gender identity is, like everybody deserves to have their needs met. And if you look at these systems that are in place now and that have been in place essentially since the beginning of colonialism, these systems were not built for everyone. I believe that we are healing on a global scale, but also cosmic. That's what I mean. Like, I feel like these systems are crumbling, and people like you and me are here to help bring this new way of being, or even return back to before colonialism and patriarchy and white supremacy became the norm. We can go back to a time, as I'm like staring at this tapestry of like a forest. Yeah, there's just madness. Like, it's literally madness. It's madness when you're like, why am I on an earth that is like, I'm paying taxes and this government's not even doing what they're supposed to? So it takes a special kind of person to do this kind of thing. I believe that is us. I believe that we are the people that are here to change this shit and to alchemize this shit. Yeah, it's just, if you are on the internet or, anything, like, you can feel it. You can feel it. for those of us who might not be as sensitive or conscious or aware, they might not they might feel it, but they might not know what that is, and they might not understand. And for those of us who can see the beauty in the future and the hope in the future, it's so important that we find each other and that we connect with each other. And that honestly feels like what Threads has been. Like, I have just like found myself in this community of people who believe in the world that I believe in, who believe in these dreams that sound far-fetched to a normal person, but I found people who also believe in these dreams and the ability for us to collectively bring these dreams to reality. It's just, it's like wild. Like, honestly, we've been having a lot of the outer planets in our solar system move into signs that the configurations have not been for a long time, like even hundreds of years for some of them. And I feel like my body kicked into gear. It was so wild. Like, I felt like this big portal or gateway kind of for my 33rd birthday this March. I just felt really different and really special. But now that I've looked back, and now that we're about to have this bookend of the Pisces eclipse, like, I feel like I've stepped into my role. And I'm still learning my role, and I'm still understanding the scope of my role, but who I am in this grander collective mission, where I show up in this mission, because I believe that we all have a place. And there's actually a lot of cool kind of philosophies that activists and people have created, and kind of, based on communities' needs. Like, there are many roles, and thankfully, like, we all have these unique gifts that we can step into this role. And I think that is so important, because for so many of us, we can feel like, well, I don't know what my role is. And that's why identity and self-discovery has been so important for this process. Like, yeah, I feel like I am seeing like all of these different like doors that I could go through, but I just wanted to share on the podcast today, you can have it all, and you can feel good in your body. You can have the creative career. You can have the business. You can be the full-time creative. That is literally a possibility, a high probability, if that is what you want and that is what you are intentionally creating. But like, the second part of the sentence is so important, because you can feel good in your body too. We have been shown that the way to success and the way to existing and the way to being recognized or going viral, things like that, we have to run ourselves into the ground. And we're modeled this idea that our worth is connected to how much we can produce and create and build and effort. And, the list goes on. We've been shown that to be in business, you have to work 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. You have to work 70 hours a week. You have to work blah, 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 blah. You have to wake up at this time. Just a lot of you have tos. That's just the way it is. And I want you to think about ways this has shown up in your life. Because I will say that when I had been slowly and very slowly building my following and sharing more of my original music on the internet, sharing more of my art, when I began my very first offers in my business, I just spent a lot of time seeing what other people were doing. And I think that's, normal in one sense. When you study animals and how they learn, like a big part of the Jane Goodall, when she was working with the monkeys, they learned a lot of behavior from watching and observing her. And that is a lot of how, when animals young, they learn by observing. Yes, they learn because they inherit through their DNA, but that's some things. But they also observe. And so it's normal for us in our business or in our life or as an artist to look at other people and see what they're doing. For me, a big thing that I noticed that a need for me is just kind of like to know that I'm going the right way. And so, it's normal for us to see what other people are doing. And then we see other people's success and we're like, wow, well, I'm going to try to do what they do. I'm going to do everything that they do. Oh my gosh, do you remember that episode of, this is very niche, the episode of SpongeBob where he's like, exactly as I do, when Patrick is copying SpongeBob and he's like, big old fish lips. But at any rate, as humans, it's normal. But if we're always copying people to the point where we tell ourselves that we have to do this to be successful, even though maybe our body doesn't feel good. Maybe this method of waking up at 4 a.m. to start your day, you can do it. You've done it. You don't feel good and you don't like it and you are a little bit upset every time. And I bet you got a lot of stuff done. It is funny when you wake up early and you're like, wow, I have so much more time. And that's not to say I'll never be a 4 a.m. person, but when we are really telling ourselves we have to do this and that we have to do what they're doing because that's they're successful, they're making money, they have a lot of followers, their art's going viral, they have 100,000 streams. We're like, let me see what they're doing. Let me do what they're doing. And again, in a sense, it's normal to have those thoughts and to want to watch others to learn. However, the belief that we have to do XYZ to be successful, that is a belief that can begin to harm us. Because for me, I can just share that as I started syncing my cycle more and tracking my cycle, something that they don't teach us when we're watching the middle school puberty video. For some reason, we as women never learned what was going on in our bodies. And it wasn't until I started cycle syncing years ago and really learning about the phases of my menstrual cycle, which I was a neuroscience undergrad, so I freaking love talking about chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters and all of those things. So I nerded out, but it was fascinating because I realized that there are natural parts of any given month when I'm on my cycle that I'm going to be really tired. And there's some parts of the month that I'm going to have a lot of energy. And that is how the biology goes. That is a cycle. And you can see over time that cycle repeats itself. That cycle is also connected to your physical well-being. And so if there are any irregularities with your cycle, that could be pointing to something else in your body that is a little bit out of balance or homeostasis. I actually have a podcast on our periods and cycles if you are interested. It's a really good one and I loved it. I had a lot of period shame, and so releasing that was so liberating for me, and I feel like so many women deserve to release that shame as well. But it was through learning about my periods and learning to release that shame to realize how much of a cyclical being that I am, that women are, and that is natural, and that is how our bodies were designed. When you start living in sync with your cycle syncing being this thing where you are kind of mapping the phases of your cycle with your energy and kind of where you are expected to output energy. Kind of saying oh, well, if I have a high energy here, let me plan to do this high energy activity. And equally, when I'm bleeding, let me be gentle with myself. Because my body is expending a lot of energy to shed. Physically, spiritually, emotionally, and that is when our hormones are actually at the lowest. And so learning to cycle sync and give myself permission, which is a huge piece, to rest, giving myself permission to rest on my period specifically, but also whenever, change everything. I was no longer tired like how I had been. I remember I used to have a really, really bitchy luteal. And there is so much misogyny that has caused us to fuel into this whole PMS stereotype, which I'm not saying that PMS isn't real. I'm just saying that, oh, you must be about to start. There is just a whole library of misogynistic BS that is centered around luteal, PMSing, whatever. But after studying, it's like, if you're so emotionally dysregulated, that is saying something. And that in conjunction with the levels of hormones and things in your body, that's signaling something. And, for me, it was realizing that I was never giving myself to rest on my period. I was never giving myself time to rest. I was like, oh yeah, I used to work doubles on my period. And no wonder you're cramping and hurting so bad. No wonder you're exhausted. No wonder. But again, we're not taught this. This stuff is like hidden. This stuff has been just not funded as well. And don't even get me started on the damn tampon medals. But anyways, yeah, when I started giving myself permission to rest on my period is when my energy started coming back in like huge burst. And I started mapping my life, my business, my creativity, the way I showed up in my life. I was following these cycles. It's like a train on the track. I was following it because it has a path. It's going on the tracks. And so over time, like as you are living like this, as the years go by, you are built in your rhythms and your cycles. And that's also what I will one day nerd out about, but just like the cycles that show up in math and physics and science and female biology and nature. It's just like, it's also, I think it's the 360 channel in human design, but I'm just a cycle. Wait, actually it's another one. I think it's like the 15. Anyways. Yeah, I have the human design channel of cycles, so it's like really meta for me. But over time, as you're living in these cycles, like it's like a superpower unlocks. And when you realize that our society is not built for us to operate in these cycles, our society was built to show up every day at the same time in the morning. Every day, 8 a.m., even earlier maybe, Monday to Friday. Doesn't matter what week it is, doesn't matter where you are in your cycle, you still got to show up. And you begin to notice the dissonance between our feminine cycles and the way in which our society operates. And then you're like, oh, well, shit. This whole time I've been expecting myself to perform at 100% this many days in a row for this many weeks in a row. And then I've been getting mad at myself for not. And then I've been telling myself in the mirror that you're a piece of shit. And I don't really say that, but you might. And if you do, it's okay. But like that voice is like, well, it's your fault. It's your problem. You're just not cut out for it. You're not good enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not posting enough. You're not showing up in your business enough. And it's like, listen to all those thoughts. Those thoughts are not coming from a world where our cycle is what we are following. Those thoughts are comparing you. Honestly, it's comparing you to a man. It's comparing you to a man with the 24-hour hormonal cycle. So here's the kicker. And this is literally what changed probably everything for me. Is freaking a difference between male and female biology. There's a lot. And we operate on different hormonal cycles. So a woman is operating on about 28 days. Not everybody's cycle is exactly 28. It doesn't have to be 28. That is just kind of like an estimate and also connected to the number of days in a moon cycle. So however long your period is, that around that 28 day, that is the length of time that it takes our hormones to increase, drop, and then go back. But for a man's, that happens every day. That happens every 24 hours. So every 24 hours, their hormones are going, it's like they're going faster. Ours is just feels like it's longer and drawn out. But because the society was initially created, especially at least American society and Western society, it was created by men. And so that's just the way that their biology is. That is the system that they designed for us to all participate in, no matter what color we are or what gender we are. We are expected to fit into this box of a society. And when we delineate or color outside the lines of this box, we have internalized this shame about how bad of a person we are, or how not good enough we are, or how not important we are. We have internalized these feelings and made it mean something about us. And this is some like deep shit. And this is such an important conversation because this didn't start with us. This did not start with you. This does not start with me. This happened in our parents' generation. Think about our moms. Think about our grandmas, our aunts. Think about their grandmas and their aunts. Think about just the generations and the generations and the generations, who have been navigating these same things. Women have always had periods. Women have always been cyclical creatures. And when you look to indigenous wisdom, they did not operate like Western society. The antithesis. This is it. This is it. Like, we as women, and this transcends any career. You could be in any career as a woman and go through these feelings because this is universal to being a woman. Having a period, being a cyclical being, and being expected to live in a society that praises you for overworking and praises you for overexhausting yourself and praises you for how many hours you clock out with and praises you for how many streams you get and how many followers you have and comparing you to whoever the fuck else and putting everyone on a hierarchy when that's just not how it's just not how nature is. It's not how our feminine biology is. And this is like the conundrum that we wake up to, because it's like we've internalized all the shame and pressure, but then we don't want to add more shame and pressure when we realize that the shame and pressure has been holding us back. And honestly, this just came to me. This reminds me of like smoking cigarettes. Like, you don't have the problem of needing to quit cigarettes if you never start. And like, I know that is like, at this point, like, yeah, Western society has already harmed and traumatized so many people. I really do feel these systems are crumbling, but the reality is that they are still continuing to harm many people as they are falling. And that is why this inner work is so important for us, just as humans, period, because as Americans and people who, well, you're not necessarily an American for listening to this podcast. I am an American, so this is my frame of reference. But as someone who has been conditioned in a Western society, this is like why this inner work is so important, because we have this voice that is programmed and has been programmed for generations, as long as colonialism has basically existed. This voice that programs us, and that is not kind to us. And this inner critic is literally harming us and the reason why we don't feel good in our body. And if we have an inner critic, this is actively harming our bodies. But the reality is that we didn't ask for this inner critic and we didn't choose this inner critic. And a lot of us, this inner critic comes from childhood and our parents and the main voices that we absorbed because we were sponges as children, and because we, just like talking about those monkeys, like we observed too. We observed and we absorbed, and those negative, painful, harmful, critical voices we absorbed, and that became our inner voice. And the thing is, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, whether you are, a 7-figure earner, or you're an artist with 1 million followers, or you're just beginning and you just got your LLC, or you're just starting, it doesn't matter what level you're at, your inner critic can tear everything down. Having studied neuroscience and psychology, which I also understand that Western psychology is another system of supremacy, and so I acknowledge that, and it all comes into play. This study about this critical voice being our ego, being this part of us that is fundamentally trying to keep us safe. Because when you look at the biology and when you study animal biology, when you follow the animal kingdom and you see, mammals, and then humans are technically a mammal, but we have nervous systems, we have brains, we have sensory organs. We do have more evolved brain structures that not all animals have. And one of which is this ability for us to use judgment and consideration and bypass our natural instinct. And natural instinct in this context is the more kind of survival, or they've called it reptilian brain, they've called it primitive brain. I definitely see it as survival brain because those animals are concerned about their survival, and that is what that part of their nervous system and body and brain are doing to protect them. Now, we as humans also still have those inner protective systems, and those are the ones that we now have the consciousness to be able to pause and make a conscious choice. Whereas animals, they're probably not going to think about if they should run away from this lion, they're just going to do it. We still have that inner survival part of us that is always looking for danger, because at the end of the day, we are also an organism that wants to survive and reproduce. And if you've listened to episodes of my podcast before, then I've talked about this idea in biology that organisms have basically 2 roles, or 2 kind of MOs, or two guidelines for survival, is to survive and to reproduce. Because when you study biology, the study of life, it's like, how does life keep continuing on? And for life to keep continuing on, something has to survive and then reproduce. Even if that is asexual reproduction, like, it still has to. And so we had an animal behavior class, and honestly, I was like, we are just animals. We're animals with higher consciousness. I don't see that as in a derogatory way. I see it as a helpful way to connect myself to nature, and to also learn my instincts, and to learn about what's going on in my body and my brain. Because the thing is, when you study the neuroscience, you see the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And, it's commonly known as fight or flight, but this is a whole connection. We have this part of us that is still wanting to keep us safe from danger. And so, when you can begin to see your inner critic as this voice that is trying to keep you safe, it kind of shifts how you relate to it. And what I mean is that when you say, oh, my inner voice is being an absolute bitch to me right now because she's trying to keep me safe. What? And the reality is, it didn't. And like, that's the crazy part about being humans too. Just the way that trauma gets passed down, and just that humans have even evolved to create like trauma like that. And realizing how much trauma colonialism, white supremacy, and patriarchy have created, so much so that now in a world where we used to be safe to just exist, and we were resourced and we were connected to the land, and now that has been ripped away from so many people. And I got lost on a tangent again, but that's the first one, I think, this whole entire episode, which was good. But yeah, just the reality of all of the trauma that has been caused by humans on humans is just unnatural. When you begin to see your inner critic as this, I'm just gonna say instinctual, because it's like automatic and like running, we can learn to relate to this voice differently so that it does not beat us down and cause more trauma. And I have been just studying my relationship with my ego, because when I started my podcast, I still had a really, 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 really harsh, mean, critical inner critic. And you learn how to kind of just like tune it out. But then I wanted to learn how to write music, and I was trying to write music. And then my critic got so loud. And if you're an artist, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Honestly, if you're creative, if you create anything, you know that inner critic comes out. But because of my lens of like the science and the biology side of things, I was learning how to relate to my ego differently and understand that it was trying to keep me safe, but that I could set my own inner boundaries of like, this is how we're going to do things around here. We're going to be friends. I'm not trying to kill you. I think all of that bro marketing to kill your ego is not my vibe. And I never wanted to kill my ego. I think, and I've done podcasts on this, it's like when you try to kill your ego, yeah, you're going to kill the part of you that is trying to keep you alive. So that would not keep you alive. And just having this lens to be able to reframe all of that. And I also read The Artist's Way, which, you know, I love The Artist's Way. But a big piece in her work is that your inner censor is just trying to keep you from creating. But the thing is, when you realize that we are connected to nature and we are connected to source, that there is nothing to censor, that we are channeling divine genius, that the art that you are creating is so brilliant, and that the creative career that you are living is your truth and your soul's mission. Like, I don't know why we're here, but I do think that it's an interesting pattern of everything that is unfolding right now, with us waking up, being present, opening our eyes. These systems are crumbling. Like, if you are a pattern recognizer, then you know, like, it's all happening. And until we can learn to befriend our ego and befriend our inner critic and be gentle with ourselves and remove this mentality of hustle and force and pressure and shame, like, our bodies are going to feel that until we can consciously release it. And as entrepreneurs and spiritual healers and artists and creatives and business owners, I also see the pattern in why we are being called to show up right now, why it's important for us to embrace the madness now, why it's important for us to create this art and this music and this prose and these offers and serve these clients and connect with these followers and this audience, because it is fucking time. It is time. And we have these gifts that are needed right now, and we have them for a reason, and we were born with these gifts for a reason. And that is what this whole journey of self-discovery and self-love leads you to, is like, what is your reason? My boyfriend was showing me this video, raison d'être. And I was like, why are you, what? But it's true. Reason of living. Like, we make it up. And that is fucking full circle what I talk about in episode, I'm not sure, 1, 2. But when I started my podcast, it's like, and this is a little bit of nihilism, but it's like, in one dimension, there is no meaning. And our lives have meaning because we create it. And creating this meaning and finding this depth and this fulfilling side of life has really allowed me to experience this peace and this ease in my body. Of literally just Queen of Cups has been the energy that I have been embodying. If you're a tarot lover like me, you know the cups are about emotions and this creativity and this inner stream of just consciousness and beauty and emotions. And I literally feel like this is what has allowed me to get to this point of being able to show up in my business on a Friday morning in my PJs, recording a podcast, sharing this with you, creating my own schedule, working from home, getting to spend time with my cats, getting to go to the water park with my boyfriend, and being at home to really just create this space of love and connection that I have wanted my whole entire life. I had a really rough childhood, and like feeling safe to be at home and feeling safe to exist has been like this healing thing that I never really knew I needed consciously. But my soul has always been just calling me to this slower, softer, fulfilling life. And I know like I'm going to have to do a separate episode on neurodivergence, but I know that is what our bodies are craving. Like, our bodies cannot survive anymore in this toxic hustle and capitalistic way of viewing our human dignity and worth. Like, our bodies are literally not able to function in this way anymore. And as these leaders and these business owners and artists who have this deeper calling, if we want to continue this calling and to continue showing up and to being this channel for divine genius and purpose, we have to befriend this inner critic. We have to take care of our physical vessel. We have to nourish ourselves. Because at this current rate, if we all continue showing up in this same hustle mentality, this run yourself into the ground, this you're not worthy unless you're overworked and underpaid, like, our bodies cannot survive. That mentality only exists because we have all been conditioned to believe in it. And again, there's no need to add an extra layer of shame, internalized shame, because it's not our faults. It wasn't our fault that this system came into being. But now, we're adults now. And we're choosing to consciously show up in our lives now. And we know that we have this deeper calling that goes beyond the metrics and beyond the dollar signs, that goes beyond the follower count, that goes beyond the number of streams. We have this deeper calling to build this new way of being, to return to this original way of being. And I am just like so grateful that I have taken the time to really connect with my inner being and connect with that critical part of myself, and to forgive myself and to love myself and to listen to the message that my emotions are trying to share. Like, I have ultimately surrendered to be this channel of divine genius and expression. And that's something that I believe that you are being called to as well. I think that's why you're listening. And so if you are an artist and a healer, or maybe you have a spiritual business and you know that feeling all too well of showing up for your day's work, showing up in your career, showing up in your expression, and you feel nothing. You feel dried out, like the tank is empty. You feel tired in your body, a tightness in your chest, or an underlying just anxiety. And you're confused because you have followers and, you have clients and you have sales. You have everything you think that would make you happy, but yet you're still not feeling good in your body. Or maybe your inner critic is still a driving force in your life and your business and in your art. And if you want to learn how to unlearn and how to reintroduce new ways of being and new ways of thinking and new ways of pouring into yourself and ready to nourish yourself because you know that you deserve to be that nourished leader. And you know that this new paradigm is calling you to be this nourished leader. This new paradigm needs you at your most nourished capabilities so that you can lead and you can share and teach and create these connections with your audience and your people and the people who are looking for you. Because I think as these systems continue to fall and crumble, we are going to need people who can lead the way and who are not afraid to walk in the dark without a flashlight. And the people who can emotionally hold themselves through travesty and trauma and pain and suffering and can continue to lead our people to hope and to faith and to trust that we are collectively building something new, something more beautiful, something more sustainable, something that colonialism and patriarchy could never create, something that is healing for our nervous system and our soul and our heart. I want you to know that it's possible. It's possible for you to have your business and your creative career, and it's possible for you to show up full of life and full of excitement and hope for tomorrow. And I want you to know it's possible, and it's not too far-fetched, and it's not impossible. And that you are deserving of this life of ease, where you have all of these beautiful accolades and expressions and achievements, but you also can enjoy laying on the couch at 2 p.m. without worrying about what you're going to post next or when you're going to make your next sale. I created Nourish Your Garden for the artist and for the spirit-led entrepreneur who wants to trade out this mentality, this hustle mentality for good, and who is ready to be in her Empress era. And when I say Empress, I mean nourished, trusting, abundant, creative, and I'll say fertile. And I'm more so thinking about fertile soil than fertile to have babies, but babies, books, offers, songs, whatever. You can birth anything, but you're really ready to call in your Empress era. And Nourish Your Garden is a 28-day program that I created to help me get from that just comparison energy and that hustle and that force and that pressure energy, and to just fully shift into this deep trust and knowing and calmness and ease and just showing up to create in my business, in my music production journey. Just being able to show up and my inner critic is not so loud, more supportive. And just being able to show up and know that my message is being reached by the people it is meant to. And I am exactly where I am on my journey. And I trust that all of these blessings and opportunities are coming to me. And just to know that I am getting to live this life that I get to live, like, I'm just so grateful that I started and that I invested in myself and I poured into my cup, because I am getting to see just how my cup really is overflowing in so many different areas. And so if you are interested in Nourish Your Garden, I'll post a link in the show notes, and you can also check out my website, embracingthemadness.com. Embracingthemadness.com, and that will be on my show notes as well. But we are starting a round on September 1st. And so this will be maybe like the 4th or 5th time that I have done the program myself. And so I'm going to do it again with y'all this September. So we're starting September 1st. It's 28 days. So we'll move through days 1 to so all the way to 28 together. And since I'm doing a community round this September, we are going to have like a little group chat. And so this is perfect for coming in, cheering each other on. If you need like an accountability buddy, if you just need that kind of structure to know that you can come back to, it's perfect for that. And this program is literally how I went from just being in that just self-doubt, not trusting, feeling anxious in my body, feeling like I had these credentials and feeling like I had all these accomplishments, but just not feeling good in my body. This program is how I went from that to waking up feeling incredible every day. Like, I did not expect to wake up every day feeling good. And you know, some days are not good, but as a whole, I am just excited to be alive and to be able to have the privilege to share and create as my career, and to have studied neuroscience and to have been published and to have had a radio station and to have released original music and performed sold out shows. Like, just to be able to see everything that it took to get here and to be able to share that with you. And I wouldn't have done it without Nourish Your Garden. And the garden metaphor is literally how I have been able to tend to my mind. Because again, I don't think we should be killing our ego. We can acknowledge that our ego is saying harmful things and our inner critic is harming us, but I don't think that means we need to kill it. And if anything, I've learned that working in conjunction with my ego and my inner critic and learning to befriend that part of me has created so many results, manifestations, bucket list, like things that I didn't even know that I wanted to experience. To be in this partnership of, will be 7 years in December, which is wild to think about because, yeah, just the time and investment and effort and patience it takes to invest in a relationship and everything that I have created, this soft, slow, gentle, but fulfilling life has been through the methods that I share in Nourish Your Garden. So yes, we're doing a community round September 1st, and I'm so excited. And for those of you who are like, ooh, I really want to do Nourish Your Garden, but I want more, I'm actually doing a VIP round again. So I did one in April, but yeah, I'm going to bring back the VIP round for this September. If you're on my email list, you get a little bonus. But for those of you listening who like the sound of Nourish Your Garden, but you want a little bit more, so Nourish Your Garden is audio only. It is about 5 to 10 minute audio sessions every day. For those of you wanting more, the VIP option is actually going to have our own VIP chat with 4 weekly calls, group calls, for us to integrate the material even deeper. And the thing about Nourish Your Garden is it's so gentle. It's not like piling on another course or framework. It's like learning how to pour into yourself and find your center as a neurodivergent creative woman. And so VIP is going to have the 4 video calls, the group chat, and you will also get everything that is included in Nourish Your Garden, lifetime access to the program. So that means you can really take it, you can do it over as many times as you want. If you want to hop in to do a round, Nourish Your Garden is lifetime access. So when you get the VIP, you will just get all of those calls, the weekly calls, the VIP group chat, and the program itself. And it's actually at a really, really great rate. For the Nourish Your Garden program, it's $111 lifetime access. And for the VIP upgrade, it's $188. So for that amount of upgrade, just for $77, I've never offered anything like it. It's like the most value. It's over $600 if you want to like count up the value. But for VIP access with the Nourish Your Garden, $188, it's a steal. And, you know, the VIP rate could go up at any moment. I'm not sure. It will probably end up going up after this round. So again, you have lifetime access. I'm going to share all of the details and information in the show notes. But it was so good to come back on here and talk about what's been on my heart and share with you and just let you know and remind you that it is possible. It's possible for you to have it all, babe. I appreciate y'all so much, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye. Have a lovely weekend.